When this starts, I want to get the volume all the way down.
Says we're live.
Yeah. Yep. When this starts, I want to. Okay. Well, welcome to Blue Island 101. My name is Randy Heuser, and with us is Bill Fahrenwald, Alderman of the 4th Ward. And we're going to start these hopefully weekly series and talk about the issues, some of the issues and going on in Blue Island. So over the next several weeks, we'll be talking about such thing as how the mayor's office is set up and what the mayor's office is responsible for, community development, the clerk's office, police and fire, public works and water, and the golf course, and a rec center, and just start talking about what makes the city tick. We're just going to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes here today, and we'll be ready to take questions afterwards. Bill's been an alderman for a few years. He's looking like he's going to run again, and I'm definitely going to be running for mayor. We got a ticket ready to go, so I don't want to give everyone false pretense that this is definitely this is about the city and it's for the city and what we're going to try and do to move Blue Island forward, making Blue Island better.
Great. Randy, I might just add for anybody who's watching, we certainly want to answer questions that people have about the city. And Randy's put together, I think, a really good outline for the meetings that are going to come up over the next several weeks, and they will be very valuable. But also, we'd like to know what you want to know about. So as you're watching this, if you want to send us any questions or ideas for subjects you'd like to see us cover in future programs, that would be very helpful to us, because we want to tell you what you need to know, because we can sometimes get lost in our own little world.
Exactly. So one of the things that I just wanted to throw out there was just kind of an overview of the city a little bit, and kind of everyone knows it's established in 1835. Initially we were a village, and it's really kind of interesting when you really get to learn about city government and how it works, that we're a council form of government right now. And that's where the mayor runs the day-to-day operations of the city, and the aldermen set the policy and kind of get everything going. And I don't know, Bill, you want to talk about your experience a little bit about that at all, or?
Yeah, sure. So I've been alderman for 4 years, and it has been a real learning experience, certainly. Many of the things that Randy's got outlined to talk about tonight and other nights are things that I really knew very little about when I was first elected 4 years ago. It's been an eye-opening experience, to say the least. There's what I've learned as alderman is that the city operates under a lot of constraints. Probably maybe the primary one would be financial. But there are a number of things that seem like, why does the city do this? Why doesn't it do that? And kind of common sense would lead you to believe one thing, but then when you actually find out how the city functions, how it has to function, what some of its legal restrictions and requirements are, it becomes apparent that you can't always do things that might seem to be the most commonsensical thing all the time, although they always like to do that. So it is helpful to know how these things work, and we're hoping to provide that kind of information to help you become better informed, about how you just look at the city, and also better informed voters. And it's very important, because there is an election coming up in April, and we're not going to harp on that. But I think we all believe, anybody who's an elected official believes very strongly that voting is an extremely important civic duty. And the better you vote, the better your government's going to be. So this is a chance for you to, we hope, become better informed about what requirements the city has to run effectively, and how you might better participate as a voter or in some other way. Maybe this will help you learn that you might like to become involved, because the city can use all the help it can get. That's for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And there's a few things that, when you talk about how the city runs and how it's operated, there's some big things that a lot of people don't really understand, and that's that the park district is its own separate taxing body. I get calls all the time at City Hall saying, "Hey, how do I rent the pavilion, or how do I do this?" And they say, "Well, that's the park." Well, I'm calling the City Hall. That isn't that where it is? And I have to explain that no, that's a separate taxing body, totally separate, outside of the city functions. And same with the schools. They're separate. We have grade school district, we have high school district, and they're totally outside of the city of Blue Island. A lot of people who move from the city of Chicago to Blue Island, are unaware. They're just used to dealing with everything being operated out of the city of Chicago. And also, our library is it's a separate function. It has its own board of trustees appointed by the mayor, and they're part of our levy, but they're totally autonomous to the operation of the city. So yeah, it's just kind of a cool setup.
And it's important to, Randy's point is important, obviously, just to understand how the city functions, but also to understand how it's funded. We know everybody gets a big property tax bill, and everybody kind of groans about it because it is big and probably too big. But it's important to understand that the city's portion of that property tax revenue is fairly small. The city of Blue Island receives about 17 or 18% of your property tax bill. So if it's $1,000, which is higher than that, that's $170. If it's
right.
$5,000, and we're getting about $600 or $700 out of your property tax bill.
So
you're right to be concerned about your property taxes and want every dollar spent wisely out of them. But it's also helpful to know that the city is actually a relatively small portion of your property tax bill.
Yeah, and the city gets funded in a lot of different ways, and we're going to have a couple sessions over the several weeks ahead about how the city gets funded in other areas too, and other avenues for funding. And so like Cook County has block grants. We have TIF funding. There's a lot of things. It's a pretty complex puzzle, and over the course of the next several weeks and months, we'll be talking about that. Yeah, and the other thing is we'll talk about the different departments within the city. The thing that's important back to finance is that we have fund. It's fund accounting. So all these different operations of the city, TIF, I think we have like 19 different bank accounts in the city, and it's all restricted funds and how things work. And it's a pretty complex thing. And I'm looking forward to getting going with this over the next several months.
And I would say about the money is an important subject, needless for sure. And certainly as an alderman, I've learned a lot about how the city's funding works. And I've also learned that actually the city is quite accountable for the money that it does spend. As an alderman, we see a list of payables. We see every single check that the city writes at every 2-week city council meeting. And those check registers are provided to us. They have a lot of detail. And so we do see that. And it does go through finance committee prior to being spent. And I was on finance committee at one time. So we spend some time there, and then city council gets a chance to look at it. And, as an alderman, I don't look at every single check, obviously there's a lot of them, but I do scan them all and I look for anomalies. And so I'm pretty comfortable that the city's funds are being handled responsibly. You may not always agree with how the city spends its money, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But I don't feel, I feel pretty comfortable that it's a fairly open system that has high visibility. And so that's something that I've come to appreciate. And certainly the big constraint and the big frustration is that we just don't have enough money, and that's an issue that we can talk about another time. But it is helpful. And the city council right now, and Randy, maybe I'll take a second here to also talk about the city council's current structure and what we're going to move towards. We currently, as you made, the city is divided into 7 wards, and each ward has 2 aldermen. And I am an alderman of the 4th ward, along with Tom Hawley, who is the other alderman in my ward. And I consider this to be Tom's ward because he was here first. And I've learned a lot from Tom, and I've learned a lot from everybody on city council. And so that is, as the alderman structure does give every citizen a good kind of ombudsman, if you will, to help with maybe problems you're having. If you've got an issue that, you've gone to Public Works, the building department, or city clerk's office or whatever, and it's not getting resolved, we act as, your advocate within the city to help get problems resolved. And, because we do it a lot, we kind of know, who all the appropriate people are to talk to and get an issue resolved. So you certainly look to your alderman as a good source of help when needed. And also, of course, obviously our job is to, make policy and pass legislation that's, for the benefit of the city. So that structure is one that's been in place. I don't know how long, Randy.
Oh my God, 1914, I think, is when we became a city with the aldermanic structure.
Yeah. So that's how the city's functioned for a long time. And there's a big change coming up in April. It's an important change, and I think it's a beneficial one, where the number of aldermen is going to be reduced to 1 alderman from each ward, and then therefore will be 7 aldermen instead of the 14. The mayor, the clerk's position, and the treasurer's position will remain. And I think it's going to make for a more efficient functioning of the aldermanic group. I think we'll be able to communicate better, and some more responsibility is going to fall to each alderman, which I think is actually not a bad thing at all. And that is going to make the coming election very important, because there will be a 100% turnover of all elected positions. This is at one time only that has happened in the city. So we're going to get a fresh start, if you want to look at it that way, and that group is going to run the city for 4 years. So this is a particularly important election, and it'll have a big impact on what goes on in the future.
And along those lines about all the elected positions, every one of them except the clerk is a part-time position. The mayor is a part-time position. The aldermen are all part-time. The treasurer is part-time, and my current role as city clerk is a full-time position. But when you look at the community getting involved in running the city, it's by and large by part-time people, and it's kind of a lot of people don't realize that.
Right. We rely on certainly rely almost totally on the city's professional staff to run the city. The alderman, Randy says, I'm a part-time alderman. I got a full-time job, and I do this in addition to that. The alderman is a 24/7 position. There's no question about that. But we're not, we do rely on the building department, on public works department, on the fire department, on the police department. All those groups really make the city run, and we provide an oversight function essentially.
Yeah. So, and talking about the professional staff, that's one of the things that will be hitting the next week or so. I want to talk about the city hall employees upstairs, basically, and then after that, the following week we'll want to talk about the city clerk's office and the building department, like you mentioned, Bill, and how that operates. And I think people, when we get into it, people are going to be surprised when they hear how much it actually costs to run a police department, how much it actually costs to run a fire department, and where those funds come from. It's really, I'm really kind of looking forward to the weeks ahead.
Yeah, it's good. And maybe we should just explain a little bit about how the participants who are viewing this can participate. Folks who are here on YouTube with us, you can submit questions in the chat box, and probably would welcome you to start doing that any moment here. If you're on YouTube, Randy, I guess you're going to be just watching. Is that correct?
I'm watching, and there's for those of you in the Zoom meeting, we have a YouTube channel, Moving Blue Island Forward. So please subscribe to it so that you can get notifications and kind of see what's going on. And these videos, as we create them, will be archived on that site, so you can look and see. And you know, my wife and I like to binge watch reruns of, you know, a lot of the older sitcoms. So if anyone wants to binge watch Moving Blue Island forward, in a few weeks there'll be some episodes up there. So some sessions. So.
Are we going to use the same YouTube meeting code and password throughout these sessions?
The Zoom passcodes and everything. Yes, it's the same one for every week. So that'll be out there, and I will, once we get going. We also have a Facebook page. We'll do a little bit more promotion with that. This is our trial run, guys. So we'll see how it turns out when we and how as we get moving forward.
All right, I might just say for anybody who is watching these perhaps on a YouTube archived broadcast or even right now live, just for your information, and I'm publicizing this other ways, but the Zoom webinar ID is 814-9672-6527. That's 814-9672-6527. And the passcode is real simple. Blue Island with a capital B and a capital I. So that's how you can, if you in the future you want to join us on Zoom, you can do that.
So that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to say today. Bill, anything you wanted to say further?
I think we've covered the initial introduction stuff we wanted to get to, and anybody out there who's in our relatively small Zoom audience tonight who would like to ask us a question about anything that we're talking about here, you're more than welcome to give us a question or two.
I do have one question.
Okay.
Someone says, I've heard Blue Island doesn't have home rule. What is that, and what does that mean for us? Bill, you want to home rule? You have to have 25,000 people or more, and or have a referendum passed to enable or to enact home rule.
Yeah, so that's why the census was so important this year. We don't know yet, of course, what the results are going to be, but right now, I think the census number for us is like 23,500 population, and that
roughly
under the threshold for home rule. If we were, hopefully the census was successful, we know we have 25,000 residents, that's just that they don't all get reported. So we're hoping the census, it was a challenge this year with COVID and so forth. So we're hoping the census may move us over that threshold to home rule. And the reason that we would like that is that it just gives us more autonomy to home rule, as it says. It gives us the ability to do more things without, we have to follow, right now we have to follow a number of state laws and restrictions. It just, gives us a lot less flexibility. Also, frankly, it does restrict our ability to get revenue from places where we need it. And I know people don't like to talk about raising taxes, and believe me, nobody in city council likes to talk about it either. But it does give us the ability, at least if it's necessary, to find, to create a revenue source that may be appropriate to our particular needs. And we just can't do that. We have to just take what the tax gives us, and that's it. And it being a community that is, not a high income community, it means our tax levy is not that high either. So we're kind of at a disadvantage in terms of the revenue that we receive, and home rule would enable us to move beyond that. We did have home rule was put up on the ballot, what, Randy, maybe 10 years ago?
Quite a while ago, yeah.
And it did not pass at the time. Frankly, at the time, I kind of didn't know that much about it, but at the time I did vote in favor of it because it seemed like it would be good to have that flexibility, but it didn't succeed.
Right. I do have one other question. Someone said I heard about how much property taxes goes to our town. How do we generate more money without raising taxes? So the way you do that is by getting more sales tax, getting more businesses in town. So there's several areas that are either not utilized or underutilized up and down the street. There's a lot of commercial property on Western Avenue that is not being used. People are using it for storage. How can we get people to incentivize people to put retail business in there that might get us some sales tax? There's also a couple large vacant parcels on the northeast side, 119th and Vincennes, that if we get a development going there, that will help us increase our revenues. The Libby building there's a lot of land there, right by railroad tracks. There's a lot of things that can be done there. So yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of ways, and those are that's just touches on some of the things that we need to look at to try and raise revenue for the city without raising taxes to the taxpayer.
I see there's another question there, Randy. How will city council committees be structured after the next election? And I guess the answer is we don't know, but
well, and so not to worry though. So until we come up with a plan of what we want the committees to be structured like, and like I said, I'm planning on running for mayor, and I want input from the new aldermen as far as how we want it structured. In the interim, for a month or two or however long after we get elected, I foresee that we'll do committee of the whole, which is our regular city council meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday, and I would anticipate that we will probably meet on the first and third Tuesdays, at least for the first couple months, to take care of the business of the city until we get it structured how we want to get structured. I've looked at other communities around, so like Calumet City, they have the committee structure all set up, but rarely does stuff go to committee. It just goes right to council. We'll have to get comfortable with that as we go along. But yeah, so we'll be setting it up. We'll be setting it up in a much more efficient manner. For those who have watched the city council meetings and committee meetings, a good example is handicap parking. We have staff, like Bill mentioned before, we have full-time staff that goes out, and when we get a request to put a handicap parking sign in front of someone's residence, we have a staff person that goes out and looks at it, takes pictures, and gives a report, and it goes to committee. And it's basically a rubber stamp. Why do we have to have that go to committee? Why can't it just go to council? So that's how Calumet City does it. They have just stuff that comes directly to council from staff. The committee structure is in place in case they have to meet.
I see another question, Randy, which is a pretty big question, but you might be able to hopefully kind of give a quick answer to it. Anyway, how does the city administration work with others that control funding? That is county reps, state reps, congressional reps, Illinois departments, et cetera.
Well, yeah, that is a big question. Yeah, there's no question that the city can work with other elected officials and try and get revenue. The state does. So, for instance, all this CARES Act money and all this stuff coming around, there was definitely some opportunity for Blue Island to apply for some infrastructure projects, and we do that. The big thing though, the big picture is, for years, Blue Island has just only stuck within its own boundaries as far as discussion with any other local officials, any other, like other mayors, other like South Suburban mayors and managers. We need to expand our scope. We need to we're think outside the loop. We need to talk outside of Blue Island, work with other people that are experiencing the same kind of problems. That has not gone on. I mean, Blue Island, back in the heyday, everyone came to Blue Island from all over. Then the malls came around and life changed, but we didn't change. And we have to do that. We have to start looking at how we can move Blue Island forward instead of just being stagnant and waiting for people to come to us.
All right. Yeah, and I guess the other, maybe another part of that too, just in terms of money, is that a good part of the, like for instance, particularly with regards to streets, which is a critical subject, we just don't have the funds to go out and repair the streets. No. Funds. We rely a lot on matching grants, which are unfortunately less and less available because of the general condition of the economy. But that is a big grant and grant writing, which we, Randy, if I'm correct, we don't really have any dedicated grant writer anymore, which is
we don't.
a good thing.
Yeah, we don't.
We need that again because grants
Right.
are increasingly important to us. So there are numerous, like you say, Randy, there's numerous sources.
Right. And the other thing is, talking about the taxes, we need to set up a road fund. I mentioned a golf fund, a TIF fund. We need to set up a road fund where we put a certain amount of our levy. There's X number of dollars that we can levy. We need to earmark, and we do that currently right now through the general fund. But last year is a perfect example. We did a road project, or we scheduled a road project last year at Francisco and Edison, and we ran into some problems what didn't get done in 2019. And the city council had appropriated, a couple $100,000 or so for that project. So the project didn't get done till 2020. Well, as you can imagine, people asking for money all over the place. The money got spent on other things, which nothing wrong, but it just we'll never get our roads fixed unless we dedicate money to it outside of the general fund.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I feel strongly about.
And we have kind of a sort of a friends and family audience here tonight. So I'd like to ask, as you're listening to this, or after you see this concluded tonight, we certainly would like to have some comments, suggestions, criticisms of
Absolutely.
this go along. So please, do that for us and help us make this better. There's one other question here, Randy. I don't know. I think we may do we think that maybe 30 minutes or so is a good running time for these things?
I think so. I think 10 or 15 minutes of, otherwise it gets too monotonous and people will lose interest, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. So we're running up against there, but there is one other question that I think is just fascinating, and I don't know the answer to it, and I'll bet you don't know either. Maybe you do. Sometimes you know things, you surprise me. Why do they call them potholes anyway?
I don't know the answer to that question.
We hear the term enough, Randy. We probably should know where it comes from.
I could Google that maybe and figure out if there is a good answer for that, because I don't know if it's the shape of a pot. You can put a pot in it. I don't know. Let's see. Why is it? That's a good one.
And the pothole season's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, I think we've done our
yeah.
And I hope that somebody out there has learned something.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk.
And I definitely am interested in hearing any feedback or any recommendations. We plan on doing this for a couple, dozen or 15 or 20 times throughout till election time, and with holiday schedule and whatever in between. So we'll be here every week.
All right, great. Thanks for putting this together, Randy.
Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys